All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Locke. I'm the IBPA Director of Membership and Member Services, and this is the Get to Know Your IBPA Member Benefits webinar series. We do this to give more in-depth look at all of our member benefits. We have a lot. Some of them are a little more complicated than others, and we want to make sure you take advantage of all of them. Okay, so today I'm excited. We're going to be talking about BookTrib. I'm happy to introduce our speakers today. We have founder and president of Merrill Moss Media Group and BookTrib.com, Merrill Moss. We have editorial director of BookTrib.com, Jim Alkin. Hello, Jim and Meryl. Thank you.
Hi there. Hi there. Thank you for having us. We're very excited to be here. And I can't see everybody, but I'm glad you're here. So as Christopher mentioned, please feel free to ask questions along the way. We're going to cover plenty of topics and a lot of food for thought. I've been in publishing for 30 years, and maybe I've met some of you. I was at the IBPA 40th anniversary in San Diego, and it was a great experience. And what a terrific, wonderful group of people. So I've been doing this work for 30 years. BookTrib has been around for 20 years. So combined, we have a lot of stuff to talk about today and yesterday. Jim's going to pipe in. He's going to be my Ed McMahon too. I'm going to be Johnny.
Thanks very much.
Joanna Carson. And we're going to do this together. So I'm going to go right into it. First slide here. Getting started. Well, these are the things we're going to really cover. We're going to cover the state of the book landscape. We're going to define your target audience, basic affordable essentials that we think are affordable. And we think are essential as well. What's the state of social media? How does AI play into the world we are in today? Publicity in general, and then booktrib.com. So that's sort of what we're going to cover today, and we might end up, adding some things as based on your questions. So again, feel free. Why isn't my thing going? Oh, here we go. That's not. Wait a second. I'm so sorry. Here we go. Okay. Where do readers learn about books? Now, you may be surprised when you look at this chart, and Jim, I know you're going to chime in here. We're going to talk about where really readers learn about books. Over to you.
It's so interesting because everything that you think you're supposed to do, and by the way, these are all where readers learn about books. Just because social media has the shortest bar doesn't mean that's not where readers learn about books. But you just sort of look at this as a whole, and this is research done by Goodreads. It's a kind of question. It's too bad we're not more interactive, because I like to sort of quiz you as to what you would have said if I didn't show you the slide. Social media. When authors say, "Oh my goodness, I'm not on social media, what do I do?" I say, you know what, it's not life-threatening. It helps if you do it. Obviously, it's another avenue, and we'll talk much more about it later. But if you're not getting started and getting up to speed and getting active, my goodness, it's a full-time job. So, don't obsess over it if you're just not familiar or comfortable with it. Author assets, yes, every author should have a media kit, a press release, a website, all of the goodies. But again, in the grand scheme of things, where are they learning about books? Book reviewers, we do a ton of book reviews on BookTrib. Bloggers, any coverage you can get is always helpful. Libraries, they're so non-threatening and pure. It's just, you go to a library, no one's trying to sell you anything, hopefully, unless it's maybe an author event. But, what a good place to learn about books, similar to bookstores, a great place to look. Amazon, by the way, book search sites, I'm kind of bouncing around. The one thing about Amazon is, it's one of the top, if not the top source of where people purchase books. So make sure, you should all be on Amazon, make sure your author page is in the most engaging, compelling way that it possibly can be. I've seen some of them where it just goes right into the plot. I kind of don't know who the characters are or where it's located or anything. Just really think about, how can I entice people? If you have a good testimonial or a quote, a lot of people start their pages with that, but just take a look at it, get some other opinions, make it as compelling as you can. Look at the top two lines there, friends and colleagues and reading groups. When someone asks us, what is the best form of marketing? It almost seems so old-fashioned and so simple that why are we all here on this webinar? Word of mouth marketing, word of mouth. What's the best source you could possibly have when a friend or colleague tells you, hey, this is a great book? Look at the second highest category too. It kind of fits into this word of mouth, reading groups or book clubs. You know, we have a book club program, and the big publishers had said to us years ago, you know, we do all the typical marketing and advertising you could expect. The one thing we can't do is get our arms around the book clubs and the book club people, because these are passionate readers who like to talk about books. What a better target audience, you know? And that word of mouth, you put your book in the hands of one passionate reader, and hopefully they're going to tell a few and a few more and a few more. So it seems simple. Boy, I'll tell my friends, I'll tell my colleagues, I'll have them share and make things go viral. But then, of course, so how do you get in touch with them? How do you do it all? That becomes a little more trickier. But I always find this is a great slide to sort of start our presentation with. Meryl, I don't know if you have any.
Excellent. No, I just want to add that word of mouth, the big question, and we often talk about it, and I bet you do too, is where does it start, right? Where does word of mouth begin? And it begins by somebody seeing something somewhere. Where do they see it? It could be on Amazon. It could be on BookTrib. It could be listening to NPR. It could be on a television show. It could be in Maria Shriver's newsletter. It could be in a million places. But that one, it starts with one person, and then they tell people who tell people, like the Fabergé egg commercial. But it has to start somewhere. So that means you have to be somewhere. Your book has to be places. And I think that's really kind of where we're going with this conversation today. So we're going to go on.
Carol, let me just for a sec, let me just pop in. You know, when we talk about friends and colleagues, sometimes when we talk to authors for the first time, maybe they're a debut author, the first thing they'll tell me is, well, I've shared it with all my friends on Facebook, you know, and that's, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's a good start. But also remember that not all friends and colleagues are created equal. You know, some of them might be great friends. Some of them might be great friends and colleagues that have 10,000 social followers. You know, that's the kind of friend, and this is the kind of time not to be humble. You know,
Don't be shy.
Here's right. Here's a chance. Do me a favor. Will you share with your 10,000 followers? You know, so look for your friends who are active on social media, even if you are not.
Right. Good point.
Question that's related to the book groups. You might be getting into this later, but someone was asking what the audience is of your book club program.
Great question. Our book club, we're going to get to that a little bit, but we can talk about the book club program, Jim. You know, it's women.
We created a network of 60 book clubs around the country. Really, the requirement to be part of our, and again, these were not book clubs that BookTrib created. They're existing book clubs. And really, the requirement was that you meet every month, that you have a lot of followers, that you post a lot on a lot of followers, and we send them books every month. We send the host a box of books every month, with the understanding that you're going to share this with your audience, but also help the authors get known, help the authors promote it a little bit, so it helps when you post on social, or many of them will write blogs and things like that. But a demographic of who they are, I don't have the exact numbers. It's probably about 85% female. All different age categories, all different interests. I think we have a breakdown of you know, their vocation, and you know, and a lot of times it's just
actually I can actually answer that question. It's a great question, and I have two screens here so I can answer it. And it's, you know, it's 96% women, actually. And it's they read more than 50 books. 72% of the women in the club read more than 50 books a year. 72% read more than 50 books a year. They and they're all over. What are they most interested in? New books. They're interested in new books that are getting some exposure, that are getting some heat, that are getting some, you know, excitement around them. How do you do that? You know, that's something we're going to talk about. But
and I believe, Meryl, I also believe that they're interested in new authors and authors that they want to learn more about, right?
That's right. Women's fiction is high, thrillers are high, historical fiction high on the list of what our book clubs really like. New authors, memoirs, children, nonfiction. So they really cover everything. And our book club program, which we can talk more about, you know, is very specific, and we try to cater to with the author to send something interesting to the book clubs. And we also do a little video of the author talking about why their book is appropriate for book clubs, which is a new addition to our program, which everybody really likes. Okay, thanks for that question. I think I'm going to move on to the next slide. Is that okay, Jim?
Yeah.
This is sticking. Okay, so part of what we're talking about is really what's happening in publishing. Some of you may know this, but it's something that we study quite a lot. How many books are out in the world? You know, there are, according to Bowker, where everybody gets their ISBNs, as of February 2023, you know, the numbers are really high. 2.3 million books were self-published in the US in 2021. Okay, so they're tracking it now, but so it's a lot of books. By 2020, Bowker had given out 40 million ISBN registrations by 2020. Okay, so, and BookScan found that only 6.7% of the new titles released by companies were selling more than 10,000 copies in their first year of sales. So what do you do about that? Knowing that it's so competitive. First of all, knowing that it's competitive is already putting you ahead of the game, right? You know, it's wonderful. Books are wonderful things. They're a cornerstone of so much interesting content. And we now know streaming and everything else, and it's enriching to people's lives. But, you know, as you go through this, writing your book, thinking about your book, marketing your book, it's good to be aware of what's going on in the book landscape, right? Anything you want to add to that, Jim?
No, just the you know, really, one thing we try to do as hard as we can is manage expectations, you know, and I would be lying if I said we don't get a call now and then somebody. I said, what's your objective? And well, I want to be you know, on the New York Times bestseller list, or I want to sell 1 million copies, you know. I don't blame you. I would like you to be there too, but just understanding the reality of what's out there, the inventory of what's available is just enormous. And as long as you understand that, I think it helps you manage and you know, just get through the whole process.
Right. It's understanding of the marketplace. If you were starting a business, you'd want to know that too. So in essence, this is your business. Next slide. So a book has far less than 1% chance of being stocked in a bookstore, right? It's very difficult to be in bookstores. The good news is that we have online channels, and I'm sure you all know about the online channels. We all do. But back in the day, there were far less books, and there were only bookstores. Now we have lots of other opportunities online from where books can be sold. So I guess this is sort of, don't be upset if you don't have full distribution of your book, because that means different things to different people. We can answer more of those questions if you have them, you know, down the road, but it is something that you should have a sense of. For every available bookstore shelf space, there are 100 to 1,000 more titles competing for that. Most books today are selling to the authors and publishers communities. So what does that say? That says you need to build your communities. We can talk more about that. How do you build your community? What do you do? Okay. How do you do that? You have your immediate friends and family. You have your immediate where you live regionally, your, you know, your different groups. These are very important people to let know about what you're doing. Most book marketing today is done by authors, not by publishers. I can tell you that for as long as I've been doing this, and it's a long time, we've always been hired by authors as sort of to give them book insurance. And we've been hired by all the publishers as well. But in today's world, the publishers are not hiring as much as they used to. And authors, I think by this time, know that very often they are taking the leading role in their marketing. And frankly, when an author does take the leading role in the marketing, they are, the publisher sometimes takes a renewed interest if in fact you're published by a publisher, a small publisher, large publisher. We all know this, that book publishing world is in a never-ending state of change. Everybody, I think, knows that by now, but we are always the early adopters. It's authors who make all the social media platforms move. And we all know about TikTok and everything else. So kind of the interesting kind of background on what's happening today in publishing. Just a dose of reality. Jim, I'll let you take this one.
Well, I think we mentioned the statistic before, but just when you understand the inventory and how many books are out there, it's just it helps to understand that, and I guess, of all the books, that little yellow dot down there, think of that as your book, and that's where it fits in. So again, what do you do to separate yourself from 4 million books? I mean, that's an awful lot. And that's 4 million, when you consider the large publishers, the smaller publishers, mid-range publishers, the self-published, there's just a lot going on out there.
Right. So it's good to know. This is an image that, you'll have in your mind now, which is why it's so good.
Or I hope not.
The good news, there is some good news here. So, and we want to talk about that as well. The good news is that, people are reading. As you can see, the navy bar here, the dark bar is the increase. So 18 to 29-year-olds are reading, 83% as opposed to 81%. So they're reading anyway. That's the largest group. I mean, that's great for, to know that all ages are reading, and the 18 to 29 crowd really cares about books. In terms of the 30 to 49, we have, a 5% increase in reading, which is great at 77%. And the 50 to 64-year-olds also 72% are reading. That's up from 67. And then 65, they've always been readers, and they continue to be at 68%. So, it's good news. There's a lot of reading going on, and books are really important. So how do you reach readers? We're going to talk a little bit about this. Jim and I are both going to sort of chime in here. How do you know your genre, right? Versus a niche, right? Jim, do you want to take that?
Yeah, we talk to authors all the time, and we say, what's your book? And actually, I see some questions with people that have very specific niches. And sometimes I'll ask an author, what's your niche? And she'll give me a list of 12 different things. If there's a word, if the word thrilling is in it, they'll say, oh, it's a thriller, and it's almost like you don't want to miss one reader. I'm not a fan of that strategy. I always say, be as specific as you can so that you will find the readers that you actually want to find. So when you talk about niches, do you say, I'm a thriller writer, or, romance is my niche? You can do better than that. With thriller, try to narrow it down. I write horror, I write sci-fi, I write cozy mysteries, whatever it is, try to be as specific as you can. Same thing, take romance, for example. It's such a general category. Is it erotic romance? Is it a proper romance or contemporary? Take a look at your book and try to narrow it down as best you can. That's what I would say to that.
That's a great point. And especially because of social media, you can go very deep in a particular niche and find your people. So we get people come to us all the time. They say, oh, my book is for everybody. And as Jim said, take a second look. And it's not to say you can't market to a broad audience, but you don't want to miss your niche audience.
With themes, is just moving on. I always say, think beyond books. Sometimes the answer might be right in front of you based on what your book is, and you're trying to figure out, how do I get to the masses? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just think of a few authors that we worked with. The main character might have ADHD. So I'm just using that as an example. So what organizations might be interested in the book? There happens to be a magazine that has, I think, 40,000 readers. It's called Attitude. Get it? ADT, Attitude. Designed for that, but just getting you to think about your particular, the themes of your book. We worked with an author years ago. He was a very well-decorated firefighter. That was his vocation, and he wrote a fantastic novel. And we're trying to figure out all the places where he can go. And if you Google it, you'll see that the United States has over 1 million firefighters. in the country. I said, where do you, these are your people. What do they read? Where do they go? What do they attend? Take a look at that. And there are ways to do that. Well, no matter what the subject matter is, take a look at your characters and your themes and try to take it beyond books and say, where else, are they talking about these themes? Is it a hobbyist group? Is it some kind of association, a special interest group? Social media has a ton of LinkedIn and Facebook groups. Again, how effective are they? We could talk about that for a couple of hours, but there are places to find people that have the same interests as the themes and the characters in your book. So that's what
Just to build on that for a second is thinking about your protagonist. Is your protagonist a chef? Is your protagonist a firefighter? Is your protagonist a lawyer? Who is your protagonist a social worker? Who is your protagonist, and how do you build a world outside of the book about them? So I think just to be more specific in terms of what Jim was speaking of. So that's always important. If you have a chef that's your protagonist, let's get some recipes going on, on social media. That could go on and on. Current trends, what are the trends out there? What's happening in the news, and how can you talk about your book in terms of the trends? We have a client right now who is a therapist, and her focus is toxic relationships and the trauma that goes with toxic relationships. And we have pitched, actually in a very unique way, her book because of the woman from Who's Got Talent. She has her own show, Kelly, what's her name? You know who I mean. She's a singer. And she wrote a song about her breakup and how toxic the relationship was. And we use that as a hook, actually, to get some media interested in our author who wrote the book about toxic relationships. So, and that's a kind of skillful way of kind of thinking about how to get exposure in a marketing and PR way about your book and what it talks about.
Kelly Clarkson is who you were
Kelly
thinking of.
Clarkson. Thank you. Kelly Clarkson.
I thought of it, but somebody also put it in the chat, so I don't want you to think
Thank
I
you.
was cheating.
Thanks everybody for that. Thanks for the help. Okay. Jim, you want to take the next one?
I think we can go to the next slide, actually. I think
We done?
in one way or another on this, yeah.
I think we should cover one thing before we do go, and that's predictable sales. What does that mean? Predictable sales is all about building your newsletter. That's what you have to do. Now we're going to go into more detail on social, but you have to build your newsletter list, because these are the people who you can predict are going to buy your book, because they know you, they've opted into your newsletter, they want to know more about you, and probably they want to support you. So building your newsletter and starting small and then expanding out is invaluable. Okay. This is one of our favorites, right? Do you have, can you talk about your book in 30 seconds? That's a big question to ask yourself. Do you have the elevator pitch? Short, concise, and memorable. Can you, if you're going up 4 flights in an elevator, can you tell somebody enough about your book so they're going to say, oh, I want to hear more? A quick tip, we love this one, is comparing your book to 2 well-known books that give somebody a picture in their mind. Harry Potter meets Gone Girl, or The Button Man, The Godfather meets The Chosen.
Just to jump in on The Button Man, this is a book, it's about the Jewish mafia. Okay, so the Jewish mafia, The Godfather meets The Chosen,
That's right.
Interesting connection, but it's a fun thing to do. And it creates an immediate soundbite for your book. It also, I think Meryl referred, it creates almost a visual image. You start picturing, say, The Godfather and The Chosen. And it also associates you, if you do it correctly, with 2 well-known books. I'm thinking, even if the book does not rival The Godfather or The Chosen in quality, although this happens to be a very good book, suddenly putting you on that scale by comparing it to this or that. And we've had authors that do this all the time. It's fun. Usually what happens when we present this slide is people start, they don't pay attention to us and they start thinking, okay, what would I do for my book? And we'd be happy to hear that. But it's a fun exercise, and I think it's very valuable. You see it all the time, and it really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. You see it everywhere. I mean, this kind of thing, if you like this, you'll like that kind of thing. Amazon does it. We do it on BookTrib. So it's a good thing to start to think about, and it's a fun exercise. Okay. So this is a little bit more
Can I ask a
about,
question real quick, just to clarify?
Sure.
Some people are asking, are these tips for both nonfiction and fiction? So as you go through, they just want to make sure that if they're nonfiction writers, that they're using these tips properly.
they're for both. They
Okay.
are for both. I mean, in terms of relating your book to the news, it's harder with fiction, but you can do it if you really kind of think about what your characters are in, what they're into, and how much research you did to build the characters. Like, we're working on a fiction right now, and it's about AI. Now, the author did a tremendous amount of work and studied for 7 years about AI before he wrote this character. So he's got a lot of information about AI and how he built this character and this world building that he created. So it's a little bit more difficult with fiction, but it can be done. You just have to think about it in the way I just described. Anything you want to add to that, Jim?
Just that some of the tips are more apropos to nonfiction, some more to fiction. Again, nonfiction, if it's an issue that you see people talking about in radio shows, podcasts, in the news, there's your chance to jump in. On the other hand, this whole idea about comparing your book to 2 other books seems to create more of a visual image for fiction. Meaning, if your book is, leadership for up and coming managers, you don't really have to compare that to 2 books. It kind of, so the title will say it, or hopefully your nonfiction book will explain what it's about, maybe a little more succinctly than a fiction title might.
The other thing that I might add to that is, this is a creative business and you're creative people. So use that a little bit. And when it comes to a nonfiction, you might not use titles the way we're describing, but maybe you could say it's like Deepak Chopra meets Ariana Huffington. I don't know. You know what I mean? So you can use this technique to benefit whatever your book is, whatever it is. Okay, now we're getting to the basic affordable essentials. Your website, your window to the world. I'm sure maybe not. Most people have a website by now, but is it updated? Are you keeping it current? If you won awards, are you putting your awards up on the website? Are you refreshing this website? This is where you build your mailing list, right? You have you take on a MailChimp or one of the others. They don't charge until you reach a certain level in terms of names. So you have it for free for quite a while. And it's a great way, it's a great tool to use to build your mailing list. Now, what goes on your mailing has to be something interesting, right? And we all know that you have to, it's kind of like you need to position your newsletter so it's interesting to the other person. It's about something interesting. It's not just buy my book. We can get more into that, but I think, go ahead, Jim, you want to?
Sorry, we interrupt each other all the time, so.
Fine, go ahead.
The website, it's like, curb appeal, it's the first thing people will see about you. And I have to tell you, every time an author sends us an inquiry, I will usually Google their name and author to see, 1, whether they have a website, and 2, what the website looks like and how they present themselves. It tells me a lot about them. Also, just when I get a sense of, what they're doing on that website. So think about that. If you're ever looking for an agent or somebody like that, or trying to attract a publisher, they're going to want to see who you are and learn more about you. Some authors, I understand, they say, this is just not my thing. I know I should do it. It's beyond I know I should do it. It really is like today's business card.
Right. And, book reviews are really important, and they can populate your website, which is something you're going to want to want to have. We happen to do book reviews on BookTrib, but wherever you get a book review, it's a cornerstone of your promotional efforts. You want to use that on your social. You want to send it around to your friends and family. It's a third-party endorsement. You want to use it on your website. You can put that in your newsletter at some place, and you need several reviews. This is not just one and done. It's something that you want to get, you want to keep trying to get reviews. And you also want to be generous. You want to write reviews about other books, say, these are my 5 books that I read this summer that I really like, and make friends, make book friends, because those friends are going to come in handy when you need a blurb. Right. And so it's work. It's not that it's not easy, but if you say to somebody, I want to review your book, they're going to be very flattered, something that you'd like them to say to you. Right. So make the first step, go to somebody that you really think is terrific and ask them if you can review their book. Then we have programs on BookTrib, of course. We have 20 different programs on BookTrib in our Promote Your Book section, which go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and we're all very, very lucky that just based on time, we're not going to go through all 20 of them. But
we're not going to. But
getting back to book reviews, think about you want to try to get in front of influencers. I know a lot of people that again, and by the way, if you write a book review, where's it going to go? BookTrib always welcomes book reviews if there's a book that you're interested in. But I'll use, a bestseller has just come out from Random House. Okay, I'm making this up, and you say, hey, I'm going to read that book and I'm going to review it. I'm going to see if maybe I can promote it in BookTrib or on your own blog, wherever the heck it is. But the idea is you're going to put that on social media and you're going to tag Random House. And what does Random House want to do? Well, they see someone else has written about their book and they're going to say, well, hell, let's share this, let's retweet this or whatever we need to do, because look, someone else is covering our book. They're into promotion and they understand promotion very well. So suddenly if a review that you wrote is being tweeted out and shared with Random House's, I don't know, 1.2 million followers or some crazy number like that, and the byline is from you, and by the way, who wrote this? Oh, there's a little bio of the person at the bottom, and there's their website. Granted, they're reading the review because they want to read about the book, but you're on that review. There's your name where people can say, hey, who is this author? So there are ways to get out there and get in front. I can't guarantee that Random House is going to share everything you write, but go to, look at some of the big books that are out there and say, let's see how I can maximize this and try to get in front of influencers.
Great point. That gets into the social media. And again, I would say be generous, right? So that's really being generous. It's sort of taking a book that you saw, that you read, writing about it, tagging the appropriate people, the author, the publisher, and all of those people get to see what you've done and what you've posted. And that could, then people, well, you know how it works by now, social media, but you want to build followers, you want to attract other influencers. And you want to be consistent. You want to, if you're posting twice a week, post twice a week. If you post 3 times a week, post 3 times a week. But you have to pick what you can manage on the channel that you like and get involved, right? It's very important to be involved. And, how do you post, be engaging and not so much, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. Everybody knows that by now, I think. But for new people, sometimes, it's always good to remember. So what's up with social media, right? What's up with it here? Where do you get the most bang for your buck on social media? Big question, right? Big question. Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it Twitter? Or is it Threads? Threads now. I mean, I put this presentation together a few weeks ago. Now we have Threads. I should have added that. Pinterest, TikTok, right? Which one? Well, it turns out, this is so crazy. It turns out that even though I think Instagram is got a popularity, it's like if there was a popularity contest, you'd maybe pick Instagram because it's so fun. It's a lot of fun to look at the images, but Facebook by far is still the leader in social media. And I would say to people, don't forget about Facebook. Don't forget that there are groups on Facebook that you can build And they're huge. That's a huge part of marketing on Facebook. So don't forget about Facebook. YouTube is also great. Whatever if you want to talk about your book, talk about it on YouTube. It's a great place. You can put a little, couple of dollars behind a talk that you do about your book, and you'll get people looking at it. It's still the Wild West on YouTube. WhatsApp is popular, it's about neck and neck with Instagram. And of course, Instagram we love. And then, we go down to TikTok, which of course is growing fast. And these are in the millions. These numbers are in the millions. So the Facebook number is in the billions. But TikTok, very important. We started building our TikTok. You can do this. You can do it fairly quickly. We now on the BookTrib TikTok, and we'd love it if you go and follow some of our stories, is up to over 14,000. And we started that, I don't know how many months ago, 4 months ago, maybe, to build it and talk about books on our BookTrib TikTok. So I know there's a lot of questions about TikTok, and but obviously, it's changing things for authors. So we're in that game. So this is another one about, just showing how many people are on Facebook. So, I'm sure everybody by now is on Facebook, but look at Facebook with a brand new, sort of with a new eye, and see what you can do on Facebook and getting to all those people. Popular websites, this I just sort of threw in, obviously Google. Reddit is down here at 4.82. And I think this has even changed since I put this. This is February of 22. I'm sure there'll be another. This is from Statista. There'll be new charts coming out, but just to get a sense of it. All right, now TikTok. We'll talk a little bit about TikTok, and the estimated revenue for TikTok is in billions. 54% of TikTok users are female, 46% are male. Kind of interesting. 5% of TikTok's global audience are women between 18 to 24. I think that will be changing, right? 17% of the platform audience are men between 18 to 24. 55-plus-year-olds are the smallest group on TikTok at the moment. But I see that changing because it's fun. And I think, if I would ask now how many people are on TikTok, I'm sure I would get a show of hands. TikTok as of 2023 is the most TikTok users are coming up. It's 113 million in the US, and followed by some of these other countries. Looking at TikTok penetration, it's around the world. Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about book talk and what's going on in the book industry relating to TikTok?
Let's talk about it.
Okay.
We know that, tagging book talk is a very important tag. If, when you're putting your book posts up on TikTok, to see if all the book talkers that are out there will see your post. And the thing about TikTok is that the posts can emerge with a very powerful life a year later. It doesn't happen right away with this algorithm. So it's smart to be consistent on TikTok using the proper hashtags like book talk. I'm sure we've all read and know about Colleen Hoover by now. Now I read recently an article about ByteDance, which owns TikTok, and how they may be starting to go into the publishing business. We'll see. We'll see how things evolve, but certainly being on TikTok with the right book, with the right kind of posting, is a good idea. Knowing the audience that's there now. Do we have a question, Chris?
Yeah, there were two things. One, someone just wanted to point out that with Book Talk, it's a reader space. So they were just saying that when authors are on there, they should be mindful and respectful of entering that space, because it's really meant more for the readers to be able to talk about books. I don't know if you all want to mention something about that.
Well, it's definitely for readers. I mean, we like to think that if we're posting about books, we're attracting readers wherever we go and wherever we are. So, yeah, I think, of course, TikTok is the same.
Yeah, and
And
also in terms of, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I
Well,
think you have to be mindful that you're being additive and not promotional, if that's what you mean. You know, authentic is key for TikTok.
yeah, and there's been some real backlash when people post, for example, like a video about like a negative review. It's just be very mindful of not wanting to get into some spat with someone if they gave like a negative review of your book. Just let it be. Last thing you want to do is to create, because their authors have gotten in a lot of trouble and readers will kind of jump on that person. It's better just to let it go if someone has a negative comment, because it'll just spiral out, right?
Well, that's a topic, you know, it's a great topic in general. You know, what do you do with bad reviews? Is you do have to ignore it. It doesn't make sense to take people up on a bad review. It doesn't help. And just try to keep getting more good reviews.
You know,
And
I don't know if this applies to books really, but there's a way to turn something negative into a great positive. And again, this relates to coffee. I don't know how many of you might have seen this on social media. A little coffee shop put a placard outside saying, "Come in and try a cup of what TripAdvisor, like a person on TripAdvisor called the worst cup of coffee they've ever had in their lives."
Yeah.
And I read that, I saw that, and I thought, heck, that would attract me. You know, how bad can it be? And the fact that they're advertising it like that, they've taken advantage of that. So I'm not sure that's the same thing that we're talking about, but just stop and think, how can I make a positive out of a negative? Sometimes there are ways to do it.
You know, it's a good point in general. I mean, we're working on a book right now that has a lot of there's a chaotic element to it. And the author intended the chaotic element. So, and a reader said, you know, it was too chaotic for that particular reader. But we're playing into the chaos, not kind of apologizing for it. So another book has characters that the reader world doesn't seem to like the characters. Well, we started marketing the book on the fact that these are the characters you love to hate, right? So it's to what Jim is saying, he's absolutely right. Try to turn it around and bring something positive. But we do live in a, you know, a review society, and I think you have to be mindful of that too, and not let it get too far under your skin, right?
Yeah, you all might be mentioning this later about influencers, but someone mentioned on TikTok there's creator marketplace, so you can hire influencers there.
That's true. That's true. And when it comes to influencers, you know, we do a lot of Bookstagrammer campaigns and TikTok campaigns where Bookstagrammers, you know, write about books, and on TikTok, same, but a little bit more difficult to get to the influencers without the creators studio that Chris just mentioned, because they want to be compensated. So what's up with AI? You know, when I put AI was so hot in the news a few weeks ago. There's a lot going on with AI. There are interesting ways to use AI that I think are beneficial. Here are some tools that you can use to save time. If you do a recording, there's something called Riverside.fm. You can record and transcribe an interview you do with somebody. Let's say you were interviewing another author or talking about your book in some way. Let's say you were interviewing yourself and you used Riverside FM, you would record it and then you could transcribe that. It's as part of the service. There's another tool called Otter AI to transcribe. Of course, ChatGPT has all kinds of options, you know, in terms of, I like this concept of recording yourself, talking about your book, getting a transcription of that, and then putting that into an AI tool because it's you talking about you, right? So you can use that to get you started on, you know, you could ask one of these tools to write 5 social media posts, and it comes from what you've just said. So that's pretty cool. Canva, obviously they have an AI tool built in, and then there's something called Studio Shoot, which I've been told by colleagues is a very good tool to take your own professional photographs. So that's great. So AI has been around for a long time. We know, based over here on Stanford University Computer Sciences, first coined it in 1956. So a lot going on AI. And if there are questions, we'd love to talk about it, but we're all still learning about AI. Anything you want to talk about there, Jim?
No, that's all good.
Good. Okay. What's up with publicity these days? Why it matters, right? Publicity is a third-party endorsement. Any of these entities, they're all good. That's why they're here. But they're not the only ones. It matters to get a third-party endorsement for your book, whether it's from an influencer, whether it's from a television opportunity, whether it's from a print, whether it's your local paper, wherever it is, it's a third-party endorsement. And, creating kind of groundswell by being covered in different places from a publicity standpoint is always valuable. There are lots of things we do on BookTrib and also with Merrill Moss Media Group for results there, and we could answer any questions, but it's still meaningful as the world turns and changes. This is what a Bookstagrammer campaign looks like. When we do that, we usually do a 30 to 40 stop tour, and that means we approach Bookstagrammers and they will write something about the book, starting with the pub date and go on for about 30 to 40 days. This campaign here brought in almost 600,000 impressions. And you can see here that if you look at the lower right, you have 3.6 thousand followers. This one had 1,000. This one had 6,000 followers, and this one down here had 15,000. And this was a bit ago. So these followers have all, I'm sure, expanded quite a bit. But it's a great way to get in front of readers because their followers are typically readers. This is actually an interesting story. This is another why it matters to have publicity. This book was a historical thriller, and because we related it to the news, which was when the Ukraine war first started, we related this book, which takes place in Romania, to the Ukraine, and a very sophisticated journalist wrote about it on his Substack. And a producer read that Substack and optioned this book. And it's now going to be a film. And it was written up in Deadline, which is, sort of a film trade. So that's why it matters. Now we're going to get into BookTrib a little bit, tell you a little bit about BookTrib. BookTrib's around for about 20 years. We had about nearly 100,000 monthly visitors, readers, 150,000 social media followers, and 1.7 million search impressions, which is, these are, meaningful numbers, and it's because we've been up for so long. I'm going to let you take this one, Jim.
So I could read that or say it. Here's the thing with BookTrib. And you saw on the first slide, if you recall, it's about 20 years old. So 20 years ago is when the start of major metropolitan newspapers starting to cut back on their coverage of books. When they did that, try to imagine the landscape. You've got the best-selling authors who are scratching and clawing to get all the remaining space that they can in these news outlets. What about, and you saw the numbers, what about the 4 million books that show up every year? A lot of them great stories, great wordsmiths of the people who are writing them, compelling stories, great information, great content to share. What do they do? How in the world do they get in front of an audience? So Merrill created BookTrib as a reader community, And if you look at our website, you'll see that it's all about discovering new books and authors. And we write all about these books. We cover some bestsellers as well. But the idea is, here is a place where Merrill gave you the numbers, about 100,000 people monthly visit the site, and we have 150,000 social followers. So here is a chance for the authors who are saying, I know all that space has dried up around the country in media. Where do I get in front of readers? Well, we've built a site full of readers. So we've also created a variety of programs to get in front of these readers. So that's how we look at it. And we position ourselves where readers discover. We position ourselves as the voice or the champion for the up and coming author or the debut author that we say, you probably haven't heard of them, but you probably should. And I have to say personally, one of the joys of working with BookTrib is I speak with authors and publishers all day long. I am exposed to books that I may never have heard about or never have picked up in a million years just because I didn't know enough about them. But I do it because it's part of the fabric of what I do. And boy, that's maybe the highlight of this job, that it's so much fun to discover these authors and to hear about them. Just like I want to share, and I'll write a lot of the reviews, and so does our whole team, but I want to share this with this reader base to say, boy, check this person out. This is really a compelling story that sometimes will rival the books from best-selling authors, but it's just the karma. How did the best-selling author become a best-selling author and this person hasn't? There's so much I guess fate involved in it. But what we do is we have a variety of programs that allow authors and publishers and their authors to get in front of this large reader base, and that's what we're all about. I can throw this back to you.
Well, we can do it together. BookTrib is part of a bigger whole, started with Merrill Moss Media Group and what we do and all the different things that we do. So when authors come to us, we're really, and this is what we love, to give them, the benefit of our experience, because we've not been doing anything else. I know for me, this is what I've been doing for a long, long time, and really riding with the changes. I remember when ebooks first came on the scene, and we all thought, well, what's going to happen to print? It's going to be gone. Well, we all know that print didn't go away. So we're riding through an inflection point now. But books are here to stay, and again, are the cornerstone of so much good other material. So,
and just I saw in the chat, if there's one thing you do before you leave the session, Christopher was kind enough to post the link to the BookTrib benefit, because there's a great discount for any IBPA member who wants to partake in some of our programs. So if nothing else, copy that link and at least browse around. You'll see the kind of stuff we do, and of course we're available to chat with you about it.
And we're high touch, meaning it's all human. You can't buy anything from the site directly. You have to talk to Jim first. Well, you can talk to me too, and he's friendly, as you could tell. So going on, Jim, do you want to go on with this? This
is just who we are, and we have a variety of programs. I should just mention budget levels. We can tailor programs really to match any budget you can spend. If you're familiar with book publishing in general, you can spend $500, you can spend $50,000. Unfortunately, there's no guarantee either way. We always like to say, though, that in advertising, as you might have heard, it takes several impressions to make an impression. So the more you can do, the better your chances. But again, there's no guarantee, and we can tailor a program really to match any budget.
That's right. Some of our unique programs, and I know we might be running out of time. We do book reviews. We have a syndicated column that goes out to 10,000 small newspapers and gets picked up routinely by 2,000. We have a book club program. We have an influencer network program. We have new programs that we're coming up with that we're about to launch a new one. We'll sort of not going to talk about it quite today, but there are new things coming. And we all know that if you do some marketing, you'll have no assurance, but some chance to get more well-known and sell some books. And if you don't do any marketing, you'll have every assurance that you'll not get more well-known and probably will not sell any books. So
I would have reversed those, Meryl, so that we finish on a positive, but just everybody who heard that, just ignore the bottom one.
we all know that you have to get the word out, no matter how you do it, whether you do it on your own social media. We tried to give a lot of ideas on how to do things, and we hope it's been helpful. This is who we are. We have a building here in Westport, Connecticut. We're solid and planted, and we'd like to meet each and every one of you when, if you'd like to get more information.
Right now, I'm sitting in the room right above the front tire of the car, just to give you a perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you all clearly know your stuff. This was full of really helpful information. I certainly took note of certain things, so thank you. So we do have some questions, so I wanted to follow up with some of those. Someone was asking, is there a list of bookstagrammers, and where would that exist? Do you all have that, or how does that work?
No, but you can easily find them. You can easily find bookstagrammers by going on Instagram and putting in books on Instagram. Just put in those keywords, and even bookstagrammer, put that in the search, and you will see a ton of them. Start following them, start engaging with them, and then they'll start engaging with you. But they're easy to find. They're just easy to find and communicate with.
And this is going back to a while ago, but you said 4 million books are published per year. Is that worldwide, or is that in the US?
That's US based, as far as I know.
Okay. And some people were wondering like what the breakdown is: traditional, indie, hybrid, that kind of stuff. Are there stats somewhere people can look up something like that?
I think the first slide was that 2 million of those 4 were self-published. So in terms of the other breakdowns, that I don't have.
Just to clarify earlier about the BookTrib member benefit, it's 20% off y'all's programs. So on the BookTrib page that I shared, there's a link to the BookTrib page, and it lists the different amazing marketing programs and promotional programs. So check those out. There's a lot, so there wouldn't be, if we tried to list them all, we couldn't do it right now, but there's tons. So just sift through them, and then as Meryl said, you can reach out to them to then have a discussion, but mention you're an IBPA member. So people were asking, how does BookTrib help with platform for the authors and the publishers, and how can publishers partner with their authors to best use it?
It's a great question. Jim, do you want to take that?
No.
Okay.
Well, I guess when you say a platform, I always ask a little bit more definition, and what does that mean? Maybe Meryl, if you have a better handle on that.
Well, building your platform requires, the first thing that we think that is a good thing to build your platform is a book review. Why? Because you can use it for several purposes, right? So if you're, building your platform starts there with us. Once you have that under your belt and you want to review a book for us or interview an author for us, you want to be part of our community, that's also helping to build your platform, because we'd love it if you said, I'd love to do a book review with so-and-so because you like them personally, you want to get to know them. Then on our site, you have a bio, and that links back to your website and your who you are. So that's part of building a platform. Building a platform also includes having a website, building your mailing list, being on social media, and then BookTrib wants to play a part there, and that's where it starts with the book review as the first thing. Does that make sense?
And I think it's getting exposure, really. Yep. When you talk about, building your platform, getting exposure. And I know that a lot of people, we have the experience they'll call and say, I have X amount of dollars, and let's just say it's kind of modest. And they say, I want this, and how many books will I sell? And I kind of, stop the music for a second and say, there's a big chunk in the middle of that. And that is getting known, getting familiar with an audience, getting exposure. The reality is, if you can find some place to spend $1,000 and get tons of sales, then I would say go to it, because it's really hard. It's just really hard. And I think readers, the more they know about you, the more comfortable they feel, the more they hear about you, the more they get excited about you, and the more they learn about you and say, hey, you know what, let me check out some of her books. So it's a continuing process. And again, what we do with all the programs we have, and certainly I don't expect everybody to buy most of them, because it gets to, it's a certain budget level, but the more you can do, we try to space out all the programs so that if you work with us, maybe you will be having a program that spans 2 or 3 months or beyond. It's not just a question of, I bought a book review, it appeared. I mean, again, if you buy just a book review, that might be what happened. But the more you can do, we can space it out and continue to attract not only the BookTrib audience, but we have some programs that go beyond the BookTrib audience. Merrill mentioned briefly a syndicated column that goes to 10,000 consumer newspapers. We actually have a partnership with the New York Post. And whether you're in New York or not, getting your book in a page in the New York Post, which happens to have 480,000 daily print readers, is something you might want to think about. How in the world could I have done that? Well, we have an ad that gets you in front of that. And there are other programs.
I'm going to talk about this. This is one of our favorite programs. This is our Books to Screen program. So if you have a
take that cover off, because I think that's an ad. Take the cover off so they can see the first page.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
This is the Screen International, which is a gorgeous magazine. But the real interesting part is that stitched into this magazine is a section, a BookTrib section with books that could potentially be a film or screening on your next, screen. And this magazine with this insert, this has never been done before, goes to 38,000 film and TV executives in the guild members, and then also to film festivals. We just did the Cannes Film Festival, and we'll be doing several other film festivals in the fall.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, just so many people have visions of their work, somehow becoming a property, a TV series or a movie or this or that, and here's the opportunity to get in front of these people. And I should emphasize, if I get in front of them once and I don't hear from the head of Paramount, just don't panic, because it's a continual process. And the more and I must say, we have gotten feedback from several of the authors who have heard from entertainment types that want to hear more about their books. But what a great source of content. And I always refer to, I think it was, I don't know if it was this past Oscars or the one before, where they said Hollywood is running out of content. They're running out of content. That's why you see all these sequels, all these remakes. They need new ideas. And here is a wealth of new ideas in the world of books. So that's what we try to do there.
One question that was a really good one that was in the Q&A, I want to make sure we get on the recording. Someone asked when they should work with you all. So I want to have that in 2 parts. One is, if the book is not published yet, when's a good time to first approach you all? 6 months before, 3 months before? And then the second part is, if they have a backlist title, something that was published 3 years ago, whatever, is it still worthwhile to work with you all to try to get publicity and marketing for it?
Yeah, I'll take that. Actually, I while we were talking, I responded in writing to the person about when's the best time to work with us. But yes, depending on what kind of program, certainly on the Merrill Moss Media side, you want to be talking to Merrill 6 months in advance. On the BookTrib side, we're a little more flexible, but the sooner you have an idea of when your book is coming out, the better we can take a look at it and start to mark down dates and programs and things to do. So on the Merrill side, I would say 6 months in advance. On the BookTrib side, I would say 3 months in advance to play it safe. And oh, and the other question, what if a book has been out for a while? Is it still relevant? You know, I always use the analogy, you walk into a bookstore. What if you walk into a bookstore and you saw the front, you know, the front table with all the current books, and then you kept walking past the current books, you saw all these shelves that would be empty. You know, they're not empty. They're loaded with books that have been out for a long time. That's because a story never gets old. People love a good story. And certainly with the BookTrib audience, when they read our site, they're not reading it to necessarily say, what is the latest to just come out? I mean, we like to time programs with reviews when they just came out, but they're interested in a good story. So we many books that we cover have been out for many years. Maybe an author is saying, you know, it's been sitting on Amazon and we just haven't, you know, it needs like a refresher, or we need to.
Needs a boost. We
Yeah.
can boost a book.
And our programs are just as relevant, even if they've been out for a while, because again, anybody is looking for a good story. You know, some of them are called classics. Those have been out for a long time and they still seem to do pretty well. So yes, we're very interested, and I think our audience is very interested in books that have been
Yeah,
out.
they don't care. The readers don't care when a book came out. Look at The Queen's Gambit, right? That came out in the 70s. And look how it became such a big book because of the stream. But, you know, it was a book from the 70s. So it doesn't matter. And readers don't care when your book came out. They only care about what the story is.
Good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This was, again, a lot of really amazing information. We appreciate you all for giving this as a member benefit. You know, book marketing and promotion can be very difficult. So it's nice to know that you all are here to help our members, you know, kind of hold their hand through the process. You know, go to the member benefit page and check it out. And, you know, reach out to Meryl and Jim, and they will be more than happy to talk you through what would be the best fit for your book. So thank you again. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.